You guys, this is our very first video back in action after our introduction video, so I don't want to waste any of you guys' time. I want to just go ahead and get down to the nitty gritty. Okay guys, I'm gonna just go ahead and hop right on into it. So if you were familiar with our last page, it pretty much surrounded around the fellowship of our empowerment model group. But on this channel, Vanity Channel, I want to express the overall perspective and life of an average model such as myself. So not just looking at how to be a very fixated model on the runway, but also holding a standard for yourself and being also that model in every aspect of your life. So the first thing that I want to start off introducing this video is 5 major tips for beginner models, okay? And yes, if y'all see me looking over here, I got my notes. I pulled my itinerary book out because this is part of this video supply list as we go down the line. So let's just go ahead and get on into it, and we'll pick up where we left off on that when we get to the model bag subject. Okay, so first I want to just take a couple seconds to just go over the difference between an independent model and a model agency model, right? So independent model versus model agent model is just a slight difference. They're both beautiful models that's looking to be represented in the most supportive, professional way. But the difference is just simply this. The independent model works for herself. She is her own boss. She gets her own gigs, goes through with her own bookings, so therefore she receives her own pay. The model agent models is being held within a company, so she's provided the support and the help of getting booked, getting paid, and going through with different bookings. So manager, scouting agent, everybody's a little different when it comes to that setup, but it's just somebody that they put in front of you that can kind of guard and guide you throughout the business and the industry as you're moving up the totem pole. Now that we have kind of got that on out of the way, you decide which one you want to go down. Either way, all of these tips are very, very, very vital to both journeys. So just stay tuned and listen to what I have to say. Okay, first things first. I'm gonna get to the hardest part of this conversation, which is our number 1 tip: body goals. Body goals is not just within the body. You have to look at your body as the Bible speaks of you, as a temple. So before you even get started on this journey, there's a couple things you want to kind of make sure tight and fit, if you know what I mean. So for instance, when I started this journey, growing up, I was a very, very huge tomboy. You guys probably don't get that from me now because you don't really know me as a person, but everybody around me knows that I'm kind of tough fit. I won't say alpha woman because that's kind of a little extra, but I can hold my own, right? And I grew up with a lot of brothers, so I grew up very tough pounded, you know what I mean? Just very tough raised. So a lot of stuff I ignored because I had other stuff to do, like riding 4-wheelers, jumping out ropes, shooting BB guns through the forests, killing abandoned animals. All of this was stuff that kept me busy as a child with my brothers, uncles, all the men in my life. But anyways, I ignored a lot of things that most girls would probably, make their priority growing up. By me being a tomboy, I kind of looked over a lot of things. And the very thing that I looked over that kind of haunted me as I grew up was my skin. I'm a very dark girl. I've been a dark girl my entire life, and my family instilled confidence in me growing up. I didn't get to school, and if I was ever picked on about my skin tone or my skin color, it never bothered me the wrong way because my parents, my family members, everybody in my family has always instilled great confidence in me for my skin color. So I don't take it out on people. I don't feel bad if I'm picked on about my skin color because my family taught me how to love me genuinely, But that's besides the point. I digress. Let me get back to it. By that being said, when I got older, I started to realize certain ways that I could have took better care of my skin. So a lot of blemishes, because I stayed outside a lot. I had a lot of scrapes, sores, just hurting myself all over the place and not necessarily tending to those wounds as I should have been. Just overall clear skin, just getting up in the morning and not feeling ashy or overly drawn, because I had a problem with dry skin, but I had a couple model friends that actually had problems with overhydration. I didn't even realize that was a thing. But just different things I could have done along the way to help me progress my skin, but I wasn't like a girly girl, so it was just kind of like, oh well. And so with that being said, before I started modeling, I just started every night skin routine, because my mom and my dad would always tell me, you always complain about you having bad skin, but you have beautiful skin. You just got to take care of it better. So that's what I did. I stopped complaining and I just started taking care of myself better. And as you can see now, it may be a filter on here or there, but what you see is what you see. Like this is me, this is me. And I try to keep that up, but during this time of the year, I get really, really sweaty, and when I sweat, it's like my skin just kind of loses color if I stay in the sun too long. It's weird. But when the summer comes back, I rejuvenate it as long as my skin regimen is up to par, if you get what I'm saying. So skin is very, very important. And you can definitely tell the difference within your pictures. So I want to just keep that as number one topic for body goals. Number 2 on body goals, your weight. And y'all, hold up. Before we even get on this topic, I am not body shaming nobody, because I know y'all like to run over here on YouTube and start to make a mockery of people because they talking with common sense. This is not going to be one of those moments. Okay? When I say your weight, I just mean a weight that is comfortable for you to feel confident at. Okay, there are plus size models, there are petite models, there are even age grouped models, right? So I'm not body shaming anybody. I'm just saying, if you put on an outfit that you've been wanting to wear for months and you don't feel comfortable in that outfit, use that as an example for yourself when you're picked for different designers, right? Most designers choose you by your measurements anyway, but they're very serious when it comes to your weight. So if you're measured at one point of the time before the casting, and then you're measured again during the casting, and then after the casting, when it's close time to the show, you put on weight, those people are not anticipating for you to do that, because they're looking for you to stay a certain size or certain figure so that you can promote the clothes well on the runway, if that makes sense. So as long as you feel comfortable in your body, I'm just going to kind of leave it there. But I will add, for the ending results, add a little diet regimen, possibly gym routines here and there, and I like to say quality isolation, because that's very important when you're trying to go through a transition with your body. Sometimes when you're transitioning to a different form of yourself, people can be very judgmental in that area, and sometimes that would discourage you on your journey. So I encourage everybody to find a safe place when doing this, and pick somebody that they know will be understanding to the journey, or they're going through the same journey on their own side. Does that make sense? When modeling itself is about preservation, you're not out there throwing logs over your back or doing long extinguished hours to stand in the sun or the rain or anything like that, but it's all about perseverance. So it's about just preserving your energy, because all of this is draining in some type of way and kind of fluctuating from personality. Actors talk about it all the time. And it's a real thing. I don't know what to call it, I don't know, but even, if y'all have a word for that, any of my models or actors or Broadway stars or anything like that, if y'all know what I'm talking about, please feel free to comment and help a sister out, because they don't quite understand what they're in for, but we understand, and we can help them face it a little bit better when they get to that. But it can be very draining sometimes, so I kind of like to do like the resting face, as they call it. Just kind of like keeping your face in a relaxed motion. It's easier to go into a smile or a frown. Everybody is going to ask you for something different, but at the end of the day, it's very easy to use your eyes to smile versus using your actual full contoured jawline. I don't know, but smizing will come very easy after practicing it, but it also will kind of help you relieve tension throughout your face, because it's just kind of not taking as many muscles, I'm guessing. I don't know, but it becomes very helpful after you perfect it, so when I say practicing your smile, your looks, I want you to also practice the smizing, right? The smizing. So I'm not smiling, but my eyes still are, right? Very important in modeling, okay? And your walk is gonna be changed up a lot. There's so many different walks, guys. You have couture walks, you have this new walk that they're doing. It's kind of like a heel toe walk where the other leg flips in front of the other leg. I'm not sure what it's called, but not too many people are going to ask you to just get up there and freestyle it, if you know what I'm saying. But to a certain extent, depending on what you're wearing and what you're modeling, you'll kind of get the feel of what you need to change up or do differently or stay the same, or it's all different within that energy that you're conveying to that audience when you have on whatever you're wearing. So we're talking about a lot of lines of spectrum, you guys, and we just want to preserve our energy to execute all of them without draining ourselves, so by the end of the day we feel like we have been on a construction site or something like that. It's all about preserving your energy, and all walks should be delicately done. So no stomping, no marching, no trying to stump a hole in the ground. I think Tyra Banks preached that best. We ain't gonna get on her, but I think she did say that very well. Everything should be done with a grace. So even if it has to be a little sassy, you still have that class and you just don't look nasty. But yeah. Okay, now we're done with that. Let's go ahead and move to our third dot, which is casting calls. Now guys, casting calls can get a little wild. Guys, I just recorded their whole segment on casting and it wasn't even recorded. Bro, we got to do better. But anyways, here's the segment for the bulletin: casting calls. Okay, so to start all over, I want to pick up where I left off when we were saying that modeling is very draining, right? So with that being said, you want to just preserve any energy you possibly can. And although I know you guys are very influenced to go big and go home, we are put in a position as beginner models sometimes to leave our hometown because we feel like we need this big break or this big debut or this big highlight for our portfolio that will make us just shine in the midst of the beginning stages of the journey. And I don't want to veer anybody away from casting. Casting is a very, very important part of modeling, especially in the beginning stages, because this is how you're going to get your name out there to people. But at the same time, but casting can get a little risque if you're not doing your research. So before we even get on that topic, I want to just make sure I say this to everybody and make this perfectly clear that no matter where you are going and who you are meeting, let's be very, very clear, and let's just keep it real. You do not know these people. You do not know these businesses, especially my girls, my models that are independent, right? INDE. Right? The girls that's your own bosses, you're doing it on your own, you have no representation. You have to make darn sure wherever you are going and whoever you are meeting, it will not come in confliction with your safety, who you stand to be as a person, and so on and so forth. So let's make that clear before we start taking bits and parts of trying to move to this big city to get this big name, and we're not even solidified or comfortable to even be there. Also too, I just want to point out something very, very, very odd for a second. Most of the people that have made it to that debut point or to the totem pole of being on the big screen, working with the big names, being on the big stages, let me say this: they always end up back home, living in their own world, working with people that create the community. And the people that do get to that point, making it big, majority times, they start off at home and they create that name at home. So by the time that they fly off and become this big star, the tribe at home is their very first fan base. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. Don't be scared to start off small, because you cannot fly until you crawl, okay? But at the same time, I'm not saying don't go to the big cities. I was influenced to do that myself. The first chance I got, I hit Oklahoma, I hit Atlanta, I hit Washington City, Arkansas, Delaware, came out of California, went directly back to Louisiana. You know, I traveled all throughout my 20s doing this, and this is why I don't have a revelation to do it so much now that I'm older, because I did it too, you know. But I also got caught up a lot too with not doing my research. So I want to make that perfectly clear that that's the first step in casting calling: researching. So with that being said, I want to encourage you guys to just take your time with going through this journey. Don't try to rush through the phases or the steps to be on somebody's front doorstep to be the doorman. You know, let's just take our time, and whatever is for you, God will not let pass you. But when you rush into something, then anything can go wrong. So just try to keep that in mind and just do your research, guys. I want to also mention a few casting calls that I've been just seeing pop up kind of everywhere that are local branding or major casting call businesses, which means these are just agents that's willing to represent you, bring you on to get you booked in different castings, and they'll help you along the way. Each one is different, so I can't just sum them up into a box, but far as the purpose of them is just getting models out and casted and booked, right? So when you do a casting through a modeling agency, this is a very good benefit about being with a modeling agency because they tend to do the research for you. You know, they tend to book with legitimate companies, legitimate brands that's looking for model faces to put out there, get out there. They have a new project. They don't even call you directly. They will call your scouting agent or your manager. And majority of the time, if there's no protection with you, there's somewhere, some type of protection or some form of protection in that building or that environment. Now, those are the ones that go off listed. We're not just speaking to children right now, so we have to speak for everyone. And since we're speaking for everyone, that includes the elderly models, the mid-age models, the teenage models, and the children's models. So depending on what you're being booked for, even if it is a legitimate business, this does not mean you're going to have a good experience, right? So when you're booked for a casting through a modeling agency, it's kind of like, how should I say this? It's either their way or the highway, right? But if you're an independent model, it's necessarily and exactly the opposite. It's your way or the highway. So just keep that in mind, guys. My bad, y'all. The girls woke up. I had to get them where they needed to be and get them straight. But we are back, and we're just going to pick up right where we left off. Okay, guys. So I had to get the girls together, get them straight, and get them where they needed to be. But we're just going to pick back up where we left off at, which was the casting calls, right? So what we talked about was just being safe, protecting yourself, making sure you do your research. And to add to that, I want to also say, let somebody know where you plan to be or where you're planning to go. Always keep your location on and share it with somebody that you trust, family member, best friend, boyfriend, it does not matter. And also, after you do your research, make sure things add up. If you get to a point where you've already been told something was supposed to take place, something was supposed to happen, people were supposed to be here, this was supposed to be there, and you're approaching the casting call and nothing is pointing out in the direction of what they're telling you it should have been, catch on to the red flags is what I'm saying. Let's pick up on the red flags. So if something seem a little sketchy or a little off, and 9 times out of 10 it probably is. So let's just keep our eyes open, and like my mama always say, stay aware of your environment. You know what I'm saying? Because some people, let's just keep it real, there's a lot of scams going on. And I don't know what happened after the COVID era, but people start getting desperate. You know, you got weirdos out here doing stuff. There's this one guy out in Louisiana. He has a whole agency open, and he's under certified watch for the offender registry. You know, so you just have to really do your research. Don't leave it up to anybody else to do it for you. You do it yourself, especially if you have kids in this business. It can get very, very volatile and very, very weird very quickly. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the benefits of the big time casting and the small time casting. If you do decide to be that person that's going to go out straight to the big city like Atlanta and Hollywood, LA, and all of that to get the castings that you feel like are going to matter and make a difference in your life, understand it's still going to take you putting in the work, right? A lot of people feel like when you go out there, you're just going to get, this is going to be it. I can move out here. I can leave all my past and worries behind me. Don't be that girl, right? Don't do that, because the same way you're going to have to work down here, you're going to. And I'm not saying don't be optimistic. I'm not saying don't be full of dreams, because whatever you speak over your life, it will equate. So I'm not telling you to lose your spirit about it. I'm just saying don't be in denial about your situation as a model as well. Let's take it serious, like this is a real career path, and let's just make sure we're dotting all I's and crossing all T's, and half of those T's and half of those I's is just overall safety at the end of the day. But it's also your stability, right? You don't want to move to a big city and you're not prepared for it, but you have invested everything into this 1 or 2 casting calls thinking you're going to make it big. And sometimes you have to get to that point where you're willing to give everything up to fight for your dream. I get that. But at the same time, let's just try to remain balanced for stability and safety. So just trying to stand ahead of not putting all our eggs into one basket. Where if you go down here and you don't make this big break, don't have this big break, don't get picked for this casting, you have not laid your whole livelihood on the line just to kind of get sent back home. You know, everybody has those moments where you feel like your dreams won't come true or they're being crushed, but it's nothing to get up, dust yourself off, try it all over again. But who wants to go through that if they can avoid it, you know? With that being said, I think we pretty much covered the casting calls, but I also want to just go over a couple things that you always need to keep in mind when preparing for a casting call. If it is listed that there will be a casting in your area, make sure that you read over all the requirements and things that are mandatory before you go to the casting. Like, for example, first things first, majority casting call would like to see your figure and your size. So most of them are going to ask you to wear something fitting, such as a black tank top or black tights, fitting to the point where they can see your height, your bust, your hips, your weight, all the measurements that they would have to see what you can fit in. 2, never ever wear wedges or tennis shoes to a casting call. Always pick a heel 3 inches or higher. We have to see, or they have to see, how you perform and execute in a walk in a formal size heel. And 3, not a lot of makeup. We're never going glam mode unless they ask for that specifically, but most castings are going to ask for light makeup so they can see your actual face palette and get the contour of your face. These shows are looking for represented models to represent the theme of their design. So your face is the only thing that they can see to understand where they can put you besides your walk and your body. So just always make that a touching point where you're not overloading your face in the whole palette, but you're attractive enough to stop a crowd but still have that natural appeal, if that makes sense. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go to the next bulleting and close out this bullet for casting calls. And that brings us to our last 2 bullets. And I'm going to kind of put these, mix and match them together because they kind of just run together. And that is show up and show out. Okay? So for showing up, we just mean showing up prepared with all of your model supplies, all of your needed model itineraries, your schedule, anything that is recommended or needed for that day, show up prepared. And for show out, meaning when you get to the actual runway, no matter the look or the vibe, you execute the stage at any given moment. So with these last 2 bullets, they're really interchangeable with each other because they kind of work together, right? They help you not only execute your show and your booking, but they can always give you extra opportunity to be called back for another opportunity or another booking or another big gig in your liking, or so on and so forth. So with showing out, let's start there. Showing up just means that you are prepared where you stand. Showing out just means you're executing whatever the booking is required of you. I want to start with showing out because a lot of people assume that the walk is the overall show, but it's not. But if you're thinking in your head that showing out means executing the walk and showing out on the runway, you're right. But showing out is not priority. Showing up is. And showing up is just showing whoever you're working with and around that you're always prepared. You don't have to get ready because you stay ready, right? And that's what you want all of the people that work with you to say. You want them to have a good recommendation for you. If anybody is to ask how you presented yourself or how you carried yourself, you want to always be known for the model that showed up, helped out, executed a walk, came prepared, was willing to do something extra. Quick story time, real quick. One of my first couple shows that I did out of my hometown, I showed up very, very early to get my makeup done. Everybody else was using the makeup artist that the show provided. But if you know me, you know I'm real independent on a lot. So I typically tend to get my own line of service for things. If everybody rides in the bus to go to the event, I'ma rent a car. If everybody gets their makeup done at one time, I'm gonna get my makeup done in the basement by my own MUA. I just kind of exclude myself so that I'm not purposely forced to be in other people's energy before the show. Before any shoots or shows, I have to just have this isolation time of solitude where I can just kind of get myself together. And it's not to veil on anybody, you know what I mean? It's not that I don't want to be around anybody. It's just to kind of get myself together. It's nothing personal. It's, again, preserving that energy so that you can have that to execute the show. So with that being said, I have a lot of little seances and rituals that I'll do before the show, and half of them consistently and productively are ran through my model bag. If you have not seen my model bag video, it is still uploaded on the Vanity channel right now. I encourage everybody to go back and watch it. I will be updating that video very, very soon, but I'm not going to take that very first one down. So if you have not watched that video, I encourage you to stay on the channel. Go find that video. Modeling 101, I think is what it is. But the model bag is very essential for models, and it's consisted of everything: heels, accessories, panty liners, pads, undergarments, first aid kits, itinerary folders, scheduling, clocks, times, everything that is recommended and needed that you feel like you're gonna have to look at or glance at, mirrors, makeup packs, everything. And we're not gonna go too far into that. Like I said, we'll be updating that model bag video very, very soon, but there is one still up. If you just need to get to something very quickly, go get to it, girl. But the model bag is very, very essential. It have everything in there that you need to prepare for that show, to get ready for that show, and things in between that can get just unexpectedly happen that you don't want to continue throughout the show to mess up your experience. So it's very, very good to have that model bag on hand to stay prepared. The next thing that I mentioned was the itinerary booklet, the portfolios. You can put those in your model bags. That's what I do all the time. But even if you do not own a model bag, having an itinerary in a scheduling folder, having a calendar, a timer, and your portfolio are mandatory. It's not going to seem mandatory because you're not going to see people carrying them. But when you do carry them, you don't realize how beneficial they are until you get into the realm of actually carrying them. So with that being said, everybody needs to invest in a model bag, right? It don't have to be no specific type of bag. Just get you a nice purse or overhanded bag, a nice little travel bag, decorate it, put all your little goodies in there, go to the Model 101 video and get all the things that you need. Most of these things you can get from Dollar General unless they are the personals or the undergarments and such of that nature. But I encourage you, go watch the video, get you a cute little bag, and get that journey started because you're missing out if you don't have a model bag for sure. Also, a camera. A lot of people do not like you recording backstage works because most of the models are in and out of clothing. So it's kind of inappropriate when you're filming people undressing and getting dressed without their permission. So what I like to do is I will go live first to kind of set the tone of the room. And if the directors, and I see a lot of people that's creating the show say, well, don't do that, I really won't even take pictures until the end of the show. But if I get on live and everybody's kind of copacetic with it, everybody's comfortable, as long as I'm not coming into the dressing rooms or anything like that, that's kind of how you can fill the room to get more videos. And that's just memories, but also just keeping yourself ahead of who you are in the room with at a certain time or during a certain event. The last people that I actually booked with, they asked me for a video of my last show. So I was not only able to give them a video of the actual show, but I was also able to give them a video of everything that I did backstage, as far as helping out, helping the show stay productive to maintain that vibe until the whole show is done and executed. So that's very, very important. Comp cards, always having your comp cards on you, even if you forget the whole folder, like your portfolio at home, and you don't have it digitally. If those comp cards are in your model bag, got this. We ain't got to sit here and surf through social media to find each other. Let's just exchange our information and network on a later day. But anyways, since we got that out of the way, let me go back to my story time real quick. The very first show that I was booked for, that was actually out of state, like, it was not just, actually it was out of the country. The first show that I got booked for out of the country, right? I showed up early to get my makeup done, like I was saying. And in the midst of me coming in early, I got to introduce myself to the MC. The MC, I'm not going to mention her name, but this young lady is very prominent in the modeling industry now. She has made a name for herself. She is signed with 2 different large branding agencies out of LA. If I was to say one movie that she featured in, everybody would know who I'm talking about, so I'm not going to say her name. She, again, a lot of them asked me not to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But I'll tell you what I experienced in getting to know her. She showed up one day to a show. She had drove all the way from, I cannot remember where she drove from, but she was so far in the south. She drove all the way to the nearest airport, and the nearest airport basically quoted her an insane price for her plane ticket. So when she called the creator or the producer of the show, she was such a honorary reclaimed model that he told her he would not only pay her to come participate in the show, but the producer pretty much promised her that no matter how busy his schedule got, he was going to make sure she got to the place, the venue, safe and sound and in a timely manner before the show even started. Okay, so mind you, this girl lived in one part of the world and the show was clear across the country in a totally different part of the world, right? So from my understanding, she drove so far to the point where when she got out of the car, the whole bottom part of her body locked up because she stayed in the car for so long driving to the airport that he had put the ticket in for her to get maybe 3 more states away to get where we were for the show. Okay, that's nor here nor there, but I'm just explaining to you guys. That's nor here nor there. I just want you guys to understand how serious it was for both the producer and this model to make sure this show happened, right? So in the midst of me showing up early, I had the opportunity to sit down, talk with her. And mind you, I don't know who I'm talking to. I have never seen this girl a day in my life. She's very, very well known and popular in her neck of the woods. But by me coming from, first off, America, cultures are very different, so I wasn't aware of who she was. What attracted me to her was she had an accent, and her skin tone was dark as, and her complexion was like a milky dark chocolate. It was very weird. I can't even explain it. But this is the first time I had ever heard Afro Latina as well, before the VH1 and Love and Hip Hop and all of that. This was the first time I had ever hear somebody use that term. So I'm talking to her, I'm getting to know her, blase, and towards mid-show, she gets up to go get dressed because I forgot to also mention, she's a part of the show, but she's also the MC for the night. So she's actually the host for the show, with alongside of walking for maybe like 5 designer. Phenomenal model, I know. But anywho, mid-show, she comes in from the runway, walking her last segment for her last designer, and she's rushing, right, to get back to the stage because she is the MC. They're in the middle of intermission, like a small 15 intermission. So like the last 2 minutes of the intermission, we're back there getting her dressed, and I go to pull her zipper up her back, and she just kind of like hit this hard lean on me, like, and could not move. And so the crazy part about this is she told me right away, you gonna have to go out there. She said it right away, but when she lifted up her body and kind of sat down, I'm like, okay, she's gonna work it out within the next 30 seconds or so she's gonna forget about her even telling me to take the mic. She's just gonna go out there and do it. But we're rounding down to the last 50, 45 seconds, maybe the last minute before the intermission ends, and he comes back there and he comes to get her, and she says, Islam the Iman is gonna take it for me and finish the show out. Y'all, when she said that, I was like, oh, she's serious. And half of me was like, I have never been in front of a crowd before since I was in elementary, middle school. I can't do it. My stage fright ain't gonna let me. She said, girl, you walk that stage every night of this week, and you gonna tell me you got stage fright? Get out there and close this show. And that's exactly what I did. I got out there and I closed the show down. So with that being said, I engaged, I networked. She already saw I had a fiery personality. She knew I was very standoffish from something like that, but she gave me the opportunity, right? And by the end of the show, they gifted her with a big flyer to take back home to her hometown. They were naming they were naming something after her, I can't remember, but she was going to be honored back in her own town, and they gave her this big poster. And the picture that was on the poster was her handing me the mic. So many other opportunities came from that young lady. So many other opportunities came from me just expanding myself and not being scared to get out there and just execute the damn job. You know what I'm saying? So don't be surprised if something like that may take place on your journey, right? So not just showing out, but being able to show up prepared, leaving yourself open to networking, to be in the right spots, at the right place, at the right time. Okay? So we cannot not being prepared and just literally showing up. That's very important as well. Taking initiative to help out and always go that extra mile, as long as it is not interfering or contradicting anybody else around. Okay, so that brings us back to our very last bulleted, showing out, right? I know y'all been trying to just zoom past the other dots to get to this one, but showing out is what the show is all about. It's what the event is probably being put on for in the first place. They want to see you work, right? So this is why perfecting your look and your smile and your walk is so very vital, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to show off what you're talking so big about, right? So there are so many different walks that you guys can start experimenting with. I'm going to also do some updated videos just showing beginner walks, small contour walks, high fashion walks, how to learn and perfect the runway without being nervous. We're going to get a lot of videos up for you guys along that path and within that arena. But to start everyone off, I would suggest you just like now, go to YouTube, look up model walks, couture walks, and try to just perfect each of these walks as you're continuing your journey. You can even book your first couple shows while you're perfecting your walk, because you'll notice with actually putting yourself out there in front of the people, it'll make you want to critique your walk more when you can actually see yourself in full action in front of a live crowd. Nervousness is a big part of kind of getting over, but it'll help you learn not only your walk but yourself through the journey of beginning your model, bookings, castings, anything. And you'll see that'll help you so much by the time you get to the actual runway, to the point where you've learned and taken in so much. By the time you get to the runway, you'll start getting compliments, or people that have seen you from your beginning start, they'll see how you progress over time when they see you on the runway multiple times. Okay, she used to have a little dip with that, but now she done straighten that up. Okay, she used to stomp a lot, but now she walking more graceful. Okay, when she first came on, she couldn't stop looking at her feet. Now she chin up, head back, shoulders back. You know, that's another thing, the shoulders and the hips. When I update these walks for you guys, that's going to be two important vital parts of your walk. Perfecting your shoulders, pulling them up, dropping them back, pulling your hips into your torso, and then the sway, right? We see a lot of this kind of going left, especially with a lot of these Gen Z kids. They done wore the hips out. The millennials wore the shoulders out, and the Gen Zs just be working them hips. But you know, we want it to look uniform, together, elegant, with a tad bit of sass, but also just originality. So your style, your walk is your style. So that takes a little bit more work than just getting on YouTube and looking at others' walks, or going on, say, which foot did I put first? Should I walk heel, toe, toe, heel? Should I lean on my toes? Should I just walk on my toe? You know, it's a lot more going to that. You have to see who you are as a person, what you're comfortable with. Get in the mirror and just reenact that walk out, and you'll see eventually it'll be perfect.